Hello, I'm Fred from the Giant Dwarf podcast, and today I'm going to have a look at the 1-inch zones, disengaging and withdrawing, since there is a new FAQ out called version 1.13. Now, the 1-inch zone, as we all know, exists around units. You're not allowed to move through these areas, and you must stop whenever you touch them if you try to move your unit. However, there is an exception during a charge and after a charge. During means that when you declare a charge, you are allowed to, while moving your unit towards your target, you can go through the zone. And after you align and correctly position yourself, you are allowed to stay there. There's also an exception for pivots. You are allowed to temporarily be inside the zone while pivoting, but your pivot must end clear. It sometimes happens that an enemy overruns after routing an enemy, and in this case you go the full distance when you roll your overrun, which means you can easily find yourself inside the 1-inch zone. This can lead to your unit sometimes starting their turn partially inside the 1-inch zone of an enemy. However, this is covered in the rules that when you're not engaged, you are allowed to stay that close if you wish. The only rule is that you cannot be any closer at the end of your move. And notice that other 1-inch zones have the limit that you cannot ever move inside them, but in this case it's at the end of the move, so you can actually go a bit closer, pivot for instance, move out, and then check it at the end of your move. Now, what is a disengage? A disengage is not actually a keyword in itself. A disengage is any move order which takes you out of contact. So for instance, if you want to advance in this position, like you are now currently engaged, but that doesn't stop you from just receiving any move order which will take you out. There is no rule that you are locked in position. So an advance, you are allowed to pivot and move, and then you have disengaged simply because you have moved out of your engagement. It's a normal word in the English language. To disengage is just to go out of contact. So of course, after you have moved out, you must be sure to be outside of the 1-inch zone of your enemy. Your unit can sidestep, for instance, but you must sidestep far enough to be outside of the 1-inch zone, and not many units have a high enough move stat to be able to do that. Let's say you have a unit in the flank, you can easily be given an at a double and just run out of there. Now, here's an important part. During a move which disengages your unit, you are allowed to be within 1 inch of the unit you are leaving, but only for as long as it takes to get out of the 1-inch zone. Of course, any and all other enemy units that are in your path will block your movement with their 1-inch zones. So you can't, to go back to the previous example, if you want to advance here, this unit will stop you with its zone. So you will hit it there, and if that's as far as you can get, then if you're not outside the 1-inch zone, then you can't go there. That would be an illegal move, of course, and you would have to do something else. Now, what is a withdraw? With the new FAQ, the RC have really gone and redefined how a withdraw works and put it into very clear rules. Instead of trying to rewrite all the small words and try to make sense of that, they've just sort of told us how it works. And the thing is, a withdraw is that you pull your unit out 1 inch, exactly 1 inch. You can't go less and you can't go more. And then you are allowed to give it a move order. So move it out first outside the 1-inch zone and then proceed to movement orders. However, some of these are not allowed. Advance and at the double are not allowed. So this gives the feeling that if you do a withdraw, you do it to get away from your enemy. You can't sort of go back and then suddenly go forward or run off somewhere else. It's not meant to be a tool for zipping around the battlefield, apparently. Although I suspect it originally was just that, a tool to equal the ground a bit, to give all units a chance to move about as easily as a square unit. This brings it back to square units still being the king of the battlefield, because square units can still run around very easily. However, every other unit are now very much locked into what they can do. So knowing advancing or at the doubling, however, you can charge. So why would I want to charge, you ask, if I am withdrawing? Well, I suppose the classic example would be that there is another enemy unit here, and you want to do a very typical 90-degree corkscrew. So you have this unit in your front arc, you have line of sight to it, so you declare a charge, and then boom, flank charge. That's the only way to use this charge, I suppose, because if you wanted to counter charge, you would not withdraw first, you would just declare a counter charge. So that's a withdraw. After withdrawing, like I said, you have to respect the 1-inch area, not just of your previous target or previous unit you were engaged with, but of course all enemy units. After your withdraw, you have to be outside 1-inch area of all enemies, even enemies that started closer to you than 1 inch. This means that an enemy parked behind you now for any reason will stop you from withdrawing. Likewise, and this is new, so pay attention, an individual now in the flank of a unit will stop you from being able to withdraw, even if this is a yielding individual. Now, previously, yielding individuals were exempt from this. You were actually allowed to withdraw, they didn't count, but the RC deleted that paragraph in the rules. So now this individual in the flank is more useful than before, because it will always stop you from doing a withdraw. All right.